can do, not what we can't do. We also did talk about power and how leaders can, be for the good, but not always. So that's kind of a quick summary.
That's perfect. Thank you for that, Linda.
Sure. I have Monica Sams showing up next. Would you like to go next?
Perfect.
Okay. So we were, there were just two of us who shared, and we were talking about, it was me and Laura Castor. So Laura and I are both introverts, and we talked about, she's a teacher, I'm a minister. So it's interesting that we both are functionally more extroverted in our vocation. And I spoke about the ability to have courage in leadership. Oftentimes we're carrying our personal baggage, especially in times like these, right? Those of us who are empaths and we feel, we are carrying these things, and to be able to put those things aside, and Laura spoke about that also, and to really step up and to do the things that we're called to do in spite of what we're carrying. A lot of times we have to do that. Well, usually we have to do that. So it takes a lot of courage. And I think you said, Laura, vulnerability. It takes that also, just being able to let people see us, see into us, and to share from our own experiences.
Yes, that's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Monica, for sharing. I'm interested in hearing one more person, if you'd like to share, what were your takeaways or what were your introductions like?
Go ahead and pick someone, Monica. After you unmute yourself.
Juliana.
Oh,
the pretty lady.
She was trying to avoid it too. I saw that head go back.
There's probably many introverts that like, oh no, don't pick me. We had a wonderful discussion. The person I was with, B, is from California, and I'm outside of Chicago. So we spoke about being able to listen, truly listen, without agendas, and being able to stand up, kind of like what Monica was saying, to have courage and not be so forceful when you're speaking, but speak with an open heart. It's really you have to do your personal work in order to be a true leader, because as you do your own healing, you're able to open up to others and be for others, and lead by example. It's really putting your personal agenda aside, I think, and being really truly able to listen to others where they are and accepting without judgment. So, we talked a little bit about the 60s, growing up in that age. It was really how the politics, I grew up in the South, really, and the KKK terrified me. And Bea was saying that she couldn't understand why the government couldn't see what was going on and taking care of it back then. Look how long it is taking to even talk about the hatred for people that you don't even know. And it's kind of like, whoa. So anyway, that's my introverted sharing.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, Juliana. Thank you, Julian, I'm sorry, for sharing and being open and transparent about your experience, which actually leads me into what we're going to jump right into. And so, hi, everyone. My name is Shenequa Pierre. I am a mother. I am a school leader, assistant principal here in New York City, where I'm responsible for the beautiful lives of 270 middle school students. Aside from that, I'm an author, a serialpreneur, and my life's goal, honestly, is to live a life where I've surrendered and I've laid my life down to be an example. I have a nonprofit, GEMS, which stands for Girls Empowered and Motivated to Succeed, where our goal is to bring about awareness, advocacy, and action. And it's through leading and being an example. I talked a little bit about that in my breakout room, where a leader is one that doesn't look for the limelight or doesn't look for one to be at the forefront, but one that has the opportunity to see experiences and model what you mentor. And so this is an awesome opportunity for us to do so. Before I hand it over to Matt to introduce himself, I want us to collectively take an opportunity to take a deep breath, to inhale all the things, all your feelings with regards to where you are in this moment. Inhale the gratitude of life, to be able to be here, to be part of this powerful, impactful conversation. So inhale that. And then I want you to exhale everything that you potentially had learned, anything that can serve as a hindrance, anything that can serve as an obstacle that you feel may not necessarily allow you the opportunity to listen, the opportunity to be in this moment and to be part of this experience. We are operating in a space of love and compassion. And in order to do so, you have to be able to break the confounds of what may potentially serve as barriers so that you're able to receive.
So lovely.
All right, Matt, who are you?
Hey guys, I feel like we're all friends at this point, but I guess I'll say who I am. So I am Matthew Hayes, originally from California, now living in Virginia, dialed in from Mexico. And I like to call myself a son, and a son. A son to my mother, Robin, she's lovely. A son to my God that I believe in, Source. And then also I try to be a son to the world, right? To be a light and to help shine in those dark, sometimes scary spaces. So the work I do is I'm a transformational identity and results coach. My specialty is in NLP coaching. And I lead workshops and retreats all across the world. And that's what I told some of you guys when we first hopped on. I was here in Mexico leading a couple workshops this week, and it's just been truly amazing. And outside of that, I'm a diversity dialogue facilitator for NASA. So I help organizations have these conversations that need to happen, to talk about how do we, when we go into rooms full of introverts, how do we come together? Right? Because when we think about NASA, it's all about innovation. But for all of us, we all want to create change and we all want to make difference. But we know that that difference comes from coming together. And we know that that difference comes from connection. So we have to be willing to have these sometimes a little uncomfortable conversations and talk about stuff and get to know each other and build bridges. So I'm fortunate to be able to do this work that I love. So that's me.
Yes, thank you, thank you.
Hey, Donna, I love you too. Thank you.
Matt is incredible. He's really, really awesome. And I'm excited just to be part of this space with him. And so we transition now into who is Martin Luther King? And I'm sure we all know some of these facts, but I want us to be able to ground ourselves in who this icon is and what are some of the attributes that we can take from his leadership. But before even delving into that conversation, let's just talk through who he is and what he stood for. And so the facts about Martin Luther King, he was 15 years old when he entered college. How amazing is that, right? Super brilliant. At 15, where was I? I was in middle school. I would have left in college. But Dr. Martin Luther King entered college. He received his doctorate in systematic theology. And I believe that that was pivotal into his purpose, right? Because when you think of systematic, you think of systems, you think of things that have been erected, and you're observing them, not necessarily to bring about conformity, but look at what are ways that you can potentially disrupt. And that was already ingrained in his DNA by pursuing purpose. And then we also know that he led the Montgomery bus boycott when, Rosa Parks took a stand and decided that she was no longer going to subdue to what was being presented to her. And she sat on the bus. And Martin Luther King, because he was one that was ingrained in the community, he wasn't one that was looking for the limelight or looking for the spotlight. He was immersed in his community, and he took a stand and stood with her, which led us into one of the most pivotal moments in the civil rights era. He was the first person to earn the Nobel Peace Prize at such a young age. He is also one that is memorialized in Washington, D.C., who's not a president, but he has the Stone of Hope. And so we look at all these different things. And what I love about Dr. Martin Luther King was, in addition to that, he was in prison nearly 30 times. Now, I don't know if I would be welcome and open to a cause that would force me to be in prison for almost 30 times. He was stabbed in his heart. His family had to deal with a lot of the hate that was ingrained in our society, and they were subject to so many different things. But when we think about Martin Luther King, I love the fact that he led from the middle. He was an intercessor. And if you know anything about an intercessor is one that feels the heart of the community. He was ingrained in this work where he was able to pull and feel the need of the people and think about ways as to how he can disrupt the pattern. And as a leader, especially in today's society, we have to look at what systems have been erected and how are we conforming to these systems and not speaking out and calling out what's not equitable. And Martin Luther King did that, but he did that from a nonviolent perspective. He did that in a way where he challenged perspectives. He was eloquent in his speech. He was compassionate. Everything he did was grounded in love. Everything he did was grounded in love. And so I spoke about a couple of attributes that led to his leadership. We're going to go into now where Matt is going to talk a little bit deeper about what does this look like for you and I.
Yeah, well, let's talk about it together first. I would love that. And what do we all know about Martin Luther King? So Shenequa shared a bit, and one of the things that she just reminded me of that I really, really love when you were talking about being an intercessor and being someone who leads from the middle, it reminded me that at the end of that boycott with Rosa, that Martin did not choose to be the leader of that. He was elected by his community. They decided he would lead them. He just showed up. And his whole mindset of nonviolent protesting was actually not his. I don't know how many of you guys know this, but as Martin was growing up, he studied Gandhi and the civil unrest that was happening in India. And he studied how that could make such a difference and how that actually spoke to the things that Martin cared about the most, which were values and principles more than people. And we'll talk more about that later, but I would love to just go around for a few minutes. And what do you guys know about Martin Luther King? Like, what would you guys say about him, like in a conversation? What do you know about his leadership styles? And let's go there. Let's set a baseline for all of us, and then let's build from that together.
I'd love to say something.
Oh, please, thank you.
As a somebody who's kind of been an English teacher, it's always given me extreme delight to be able to look at Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech, which to me is absolutely beautiful in its skill of oratory, in it's so rich, you know, Shakespearean rich, but also so humanitarian. That love that sorry, I can't pronounce your name, Shenequa, that you said, it's just infused with that love, and I, you know, I've loved putting that before young people as an example of everything that's excellent to aim for, and he's been formative influence on my life from early on.
How did you get introduced to Martin Luther King? Where are you calling in from? I'm sorry if you said.
At Stroud, Gloucestershire, UK. I think it was, you know, 17. I was around 17. I can't. It might have been I saw a television program and was appalled at the violence that I saw, and then from that read, and you know, yeah, just I decided the power of the pen, please, and love.
Wow, I love that. And that is such an important leadership quality in itself, to take initiative. So I'm so glad that you're in this room for us. Anyone else would love to share?
John had put in the comments about.
Ooh, go, John.
He was taught by Howard Thurman at Boston University, where he obtained. Oh, go ahead, John.
Yeah, tell us.
Thurman just should not be left out of any story about Martin Luther King, in my opinion, because he inspired Martin Luther King so much with his nonviolence orientation that he learned from Gandhi by meeting him in the 30s. Howard Thurman lived a long, long time and wrote many books. And anyway, I just wanted to mention Howard Thurman.
No, please.
And I went to Boston University School of Theology, so I had to plug that too.
So how did you first get introduced to, you know, Martin and the whole story?
Say that again?
How did you first get introduced to MLK and his leadership and just him as an individual?
Well, that's interesting. Golly, I certainly was aware of his speech back. I think that's probably, I watched the speech. It was in August of '63, and I became a fan of his approach right from the start. And then when he gave a speech that was very courageous and risky about the Vietnam War at Riverside Church in '67, and that was he lost a lot of his allies, but wow, I mean, that just really demonstrated his love of nonviolence and how important it was.
Yeah, that's huge. I think there's been a couple times so far that I've heard courage brought up. So
one more thing in the book Caste, which is so powerful. The author mentions that Martin Luther King went to India and was introduced in South India at some point by somebody who said, "Let me introduce the untouchable from the United States." And at first, Martin Luther King was taken back by that. But the more he thought about it, he said, "Yeah, you got it."
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, John, for sharing and for speaking. Laura just put a comment in. I did hear that the "I Have a Dream" was not written into the original speech. It's what came up naturally and what was part of the emotional charge of that moment. Did anyone else hear anything like that or have any other thoughts or feelings around that speech? I know we've heard it. It just felt so powerful. It's touched so many of us. Donna has her hand up. Go ahead, Donna. I've never seen you raise your hand before.
Actually, Monica had her hand up as well. Do you want to go first, Monica? No? Okay. Um, so my language and how I understand the world is through astrology. And so I pulled Martin's natal chart up, and he's a Capricorn. And Capricorns are the last earth sign. It's at the very end by Aquarius and Pisces. And so Capricorn's job is as the midwife to move us from this earth-based density into Aquarius. So if we come off of the earth in Capricorn, we move into Aquarius, which is what Rosa Parks is. Rosa Parks and I share a birthday on the 4th of February. So she just had her birthday, as did I. And so Aquarius goes into the heavens. And then Pisces is the great beyond, right? If you know a Pisces, they're just all up in their Disney fantasy doing that. They're not even on planet Earth, right? They're just way out there. And so Martin, the idea of the Capricorn is of the midwife to contain us, to teach us to contain ourselves in a way that allows us to get to our heavenly selves, right? Isn't that what he was preaching about? Is like, who are you in your God self, and who are you when you align to who you are as a person between heaven and earth. He also, as the disruptor in his Chinese medicine, is the earth dragon. And so he came in, right? Look at a dragon as impenetrable. He came to earth to disrupt the earth energy, right? Just like Shenequa said earlier, he's a disruptor. He's also a life path 1, which is the seed. So he came in to disrupt everything and drop a seed in and then let us cultivate it. And so that is one way that I understand Martin and who he was and how he came to say no.
Oh man.
Yeah.
There are some things, one specifically where you talked about him being a midwife, which ties very connectively in understanding what an intercessor does. It's one that has the ability to work with, it's not an isolated entity, but you're working with the people to be able to bring about light, to bring about just a newness and an understanding that ultimately breeds a seed that can later be cultivated in the future. So thank you so much for sharing your insight with regards to your perspective. I know you said—
That's why I love this, because there's so many people,
Mm-hmm.
and we're all so wise in our different ways.
Yeah.
And this is just amazing. I know Monica had her hand up, and then Palmer. And granted, I can't see all the screens, so if I don't say it, just go, right? Don't let me be the bearer of the mute button. Like,
I didn't have my hand up. I was just clapping.
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry.
Okay, cool.
Palmer, I saw your real hand and then your virtual hand.
I want to, if it's okay, to ask Donna, when it comes to the astrology of the time when all the riots were happening and all the speeches were happening and everything was, the streets were crazy and burning and everything during the Martin Luther King time, is the astrology, the planets the same when the George Floyd and with the Trump stuff and everything else happening now? Is the astrology the same as it was 50 years ago? Do you know that, Donna? Am I allowed to ask that?
I think that's a great question, and I think it's a really good conversation to have maybe offline. But what I will say is that there are some very stark similarities, because immediately after Martin's death, there were riots in hundreds of cities throughout the country that changed the way that the entire government looked at these topics. And that's exactly what we just experienced last year after George Floyd. Riots throughout the country and a new set of eyes being put on to how we looked at these conversations. So there are some very, very distinct similarities. That's a really good perception, Palmer. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. I just want to say that after 50 years, really not much has changed. The systems, yes, seeds planted, everything like that, but to be going through this again after all this time, like, I honestly believe this pandemic is Mother Nature saying, stop, everybody, and change all the systems. And I think that was leading up. These things were all coming up again to change all the systems for the times now. Anyway, I'm just.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. And one of the things that I love to, that I started to really embody, and I love sharing with folks, I'll share it here because it feels accurate, is that movements start with moments. Moments just like this, right? It's the conversation. It's the person being willing to speak up. It's the courage to say, you know, I don't know if that feels right. Like I think maybe we should pause and talk about this. It's these moments, everyone on this call is what is starting that movement to make a difference. Renee, you had your hand up?
I wanted to add into the conversation because I'm hearing that, we're bringing our lived experience around our connections with MLK. And I really appreciate Howard Thurman being brought in. And I wanted to bring in as well people that my life has crossed that were in the movement. And I really can't tease them apart from MLK. While he is the person that has been lifted up as the one we know, the people around him made such a huge impact, and they worked together as a team in a way that often history doesn't, in my opinion, completely elucidate. So I've had the pleasure of crisscrossing in my life with James Lawson, whom was really pivotal in basically the strategy of how things were acted out. And if any of you have ever spent any time before he passed with Vincent Harding, you know that Vincent Harding, and I had the great pleasure of being in many retreats with him where he takes your hand and he says, tell me about your people. And when you're around these kinds of people and you realize this was the team that was working with Martin Luther King, that it really was a deep well of leadership. And also, I just want to name that the women, the women that at that time were in the basement of the church and chopping wood and carrying water, that we don't really appreciate that the rigor and the discipline of the movement was really built by them, maybe more than the out front leaders or as much as, and I just never have way to really express that in how much the work is not the sexy part, it's the folding the chairs up and making sure there's cups of water and that part. And I just wanted to add that to our conversation today, because as powerful as Martin Luther King is, I also think I've been really looking at the danger of deifying or making that one person the thing, because as we can see, when it is not a kind of leader that might inspire us, that is also really toxic.
Such a valuable perspective. Thank you for that, Renee. And that's actually something that we'll talk about in subsequent courses, is having the right people around you so that you actually create the environment to be able to make a change. Right. So thank you for bringing that to light a little early. That's so important. And what that does for us is it proves that that's a valuable point.
Hey, Matt.
Yes, go, Joe. I'm so glad you jumped in. Thank you.
Yeah, I've been wanting to say this, and now it's kind of the perfect moment. The person that said, tell him about the dream, Martin, was Mahalia Jackson, his very good friend and the fabulous singer that I grew up hearing all the time. It was his good friend who he had told that dream to. And so she said, tell him about the dream. And it changed the speech became then the I Have a Dream speech that was not written in at all.
That's so profound. Thank you for adding that in, Joe. So I think it might be a good time, Susan, if you're able to share the first video. And because we've all talked and touched on such important points, we just wanted to share a little 1-minute clip from one of Martin's speeches that talks about some of the main important things that a leader must do, but also to lead with compassion, and also what makes a leader stand apart, right? What makes a person stand apart? I.
You have to share your sound, Susan.
But it really doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
August 19, 2019. Shenequa and I watched that video earlier, and you know, we're like, what passion to not even finish your sentence and just walk off the stage to be halfway through your sentences. You know, I love that video because what Martin did in this 1 minute, 60 seconds, is showed us three extremely valuable things that we need to know as we want to make change and as we're leaders. The first one, that the vision must be bigger than an individual, right? It wasn't about him. Even in that 1 minute clip, he said, I might not even be there with you, right? And Donna referenced this in her breakdown. You know, planting a seed, I might not even go, but I see that it for you. The second thing, he gave confidence to those who are fearful, right? We talked about confidence a lot already and courage, and we'll talk a little bit more later on about what kind of confidence he had, but he had a deep knowingness in that cause and mission. He was assured that his attempts and his influences were appropriate and right because he knew in his soul that they were right? And then finally, this is probably the most important one, no matter what environment you're in, whether it's you're a leader at work, a leader at church, a leader in your hobby group, a leader in your family, no matter where you lead, you need to learn how to instill hope. And I'm going to give you a very simple equation for that. Reality plus possibility equals hope. And Martin Luther King broke that down there. He said, this is where we are. We have a long road ahead. We're not there yet. I'm telling the truth about that. It's not going to be easy, right? We're here. But I've been to the mountaintop and I see where we can go. And I see it with such clarity, with such vision. I see it. He gave them reality. He gave them possibility. And it gave all of us hope, even to this day.
Yeah, I love that. I remember when we were having the discussion and we talked about this equation and how it unlocks something within us when it comes to our faith, when it comes to just us being resolute and resolved in the work that we do. But what do you do when you have insurmountable roadblocks and things that hinder you, when it comes to this work? And so briefly, I want to talk a little bit about like personal situations and experiences that may come into play when you are a leader. And so for me, growing up a young lady in Miami, Florida, from a Haitian family where, you know, my grandmother has 17 kids. And in our culture, it was often stated that in order to be deemed successful, you had to aspire to be a doctor or a lawyer. And that was my goal. I went to school to actually become a pathologist. I graduated with a double bachelor's in biology and psychology, and I was shooting for the stars, but I was extremely unhappy because throughout that entire journey, I suffered so much. One, because I am Black, and I am a female. And I hated the fact that I had to always confront experiences where I had to prove myself. And so I graduated from high school with a 4.8 GPA, and I applied to attend Florida State University. And I had to be interviewed 3 times because they didn't believe that Shenequa Pierre from Miami, Florida could have a 1460 on her SATs and graduate with a 4.8. And that was a story, a personal trauma that stuck with me throughout my life, because I felt the need to always perform, because people just didn't believe. They didn't believe. And as a leader, I knew I was born to be one. It's just part of my DNA. I continued to push through regardless of those situations, and knowing that they wouldn't stop, because it continued. I am a school leader in a network that is predominantly ran by white people. And often when I come to the table to talk about equity and the racial inequality that's happening within our school system, regarding our curriculum, regarding the staff and the experiences that we afford our children when it comes to how we perceive their families and how we perceive them as people, I've often been sidelined and silenced. But just like Martin, I understood the importance of leading from the middle, where the work didn't stop, it continued, and I pushed past those situations, knowing that there was a silver lining. It was an opportunity for me to shed light on my experiences that bring us to the point to where we are today. A leader is not one that sits and sulks in experiences. A leader calls things out. A leader has an opportunity to speak through these moments where mercy wasn't afforded. But because I was locked in, as Matthew stated, like my reality, but then my hope unlocked something in me to really continue to push and really serve as a model and a mentor, to be an example, to be a light, to bring about an opportunity to shed off these different things and to really embody change. And what does transformation look like? And so all that to say, a leader in your walk of understanding leadership and what that looks like, there are going to be obstacles. There are going to be hindrances that may stand in the way, but you have to be fortified in knowing what is your cause, because it's bigger than you. The work that I do today as a doctoral student, as a school leader, as a mom, as a change agent, it's bigger than me. It's for the lives that come after me. And that's exactly what Martin did and what he depicted in that speech. He said, I may not even be here. And he's not here today, but he is a resounding voice that still echoes in our earth today, because he decided to accept his reality, but then push forward and stand in what he believed in. Matt, any other additional thoughts?
That was perfect. No, it was a great tie to what Susan will share now. So I will let it sit and not add.
I want to suggest some of the things that should be in your life's blueprint. Number one in your life's blueprint should be a deep belief in your own dignity, your own worth, and your own somebodyness. Don't allow anybody to make you feel that you are nobody. Always feel that you count. Always feel that you have worth. And always feel that your life has ultimate significance. Now that means that
How perfect was that clip based on what Shenequa just shared with us? Yeah. You know, a few minutes ago, I said we'll come back and talk about what kind of confidence he had. Self-confidence. A deep belief in your own worth and somebodiness. You want to lead? You start by leading you. And I think it's really vital that we pay attention to the word choice. A deep belief. Right? And there's a difference between faith and belief that I don't think we always notice. Where faith says, I know what's possible. Belief says, I know what's possible for me. And sometimes we can be people that have so much faith in the world, so much faith in humanity, so much faith in all these things, but we don't believe it. I have the faith without the belief. But this is what belief does. Belief is what allows you to see possibility. Possibility is what allows you to instill hope. Hope is what leads to action. Action then builds the belief of everyone else. It all starts with, what do you believe? One last thing before I pass it back to Shenequa. As a leader, it is much easier to lead with principles than it is to lead by people. And what I mean by that is we are people and we are different every single day. And our emotions are different every day and our thoughts are different every day. And trying to lead based on, for those of you who have a family, you know this. Like trying to lead based on emotions of what's happening right now is like trying to go in a straight line in a ship in the middle of a storm. It's very difficult. But if you lead on principle, what that does is it allows you to stay centered, focused, and to make sure your decisions are consistent. And what consistency feels like in your body is integrity. And integrity builds your belief even more. So, belief, possibility, hope, action, more belief. It's a cycle that if you choose to believe in your own worth and somebodiness, you have no choice but to make a difference. But so many people have already said it. It starts with us. And it starts with doing our own work. And it starts with seeing what's inside of me.
Matthew is gold, for sure. And thank you for segueing us into this moment where we've talked about hope, we've spoken about belief. Matt so eloquently depicted and just showed us what does that cycle look like. And so knowing that it starts with you, I want you to take this moment, take this opportunity to actually think about, so what are going to be your actions based off of what you heard today? How are you going to mimic and replicate that this week? And understanding who you are and what is your blueprint. I want you to take 60 seconds to think about it, but then actually write down what are some actions you are going to take within this week to begin this cycle, to begin this process. And if Matt, if you can put it in the chat so that we can have that opportunity to reflect on what was stated and align ourselves in that equation so that we can accurately document our action steps for this week.
If I could share something based on what Matthew was saying. I have carried this quote around for about 20 years now from Jim Wallace's God's Politics. Hope keeps activism alive.
and activism keeps hope alive. When you stop acting, it might mean you've given up hope. You've got to act.
Thank you for that, Ethel. That was so good.
So wise, for sure. Matt, can you put the cycle in the chat, love?
Yep, typing it now.
So use this quiet time to process and to think through what are going to be your action steps. "30 more seconds to begin to wrap up your thoughts. And I don't want you to feel pressure to catalog this all in this moment, because this is your charge. This is your charge throughout the week to be able to live out. And if you didn't have an understanding of your blueprint, we're super excited to be catalysts to push you into that work this week. So one, I want to extend gratitude for all of you being here, and pat yourself on the back. I want to actually see it. Okay, thank you, Susan. Matt, you didn't do it. Come on. All right. Pat yourself on the back. You participated in such a profound, deep conversation today that I believe just aligned us a little bit more closer. And I can see actually Dr. Martin Luther King's ideal of us walking hand in hand together to plow, to move forward. I'm very curious to hear what were your takeaways. I would love for everyone to jot down at least one takeaway from today's session in the chat. One takeaway that you had from today's session that you are going to hold dearly, that's going to take you into this week. That's right, Donna. Lead from the middle.
And that's exactly why we use that picture of Martin in the middle of the bridge, arm in arm with everyone, because it was the perfect embodiment of that statement. Ooh, listen without an agenda, that's big. MLK lives on in each of our work. Movements start with moments.
Matt is quoted, you start by leading you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the need to renew hope.
Love, love, love.
Yes, reality plus possibility equals hope. The cycle of hope. Yes, Nicole, thank you for sharing the formula. Hope, acknowledge what I'm feeling. The reality, acknowledge what I'm thinking. And possibility, acknowledge what I know. That's powerful. And I love the tangible action steps to follow. cultivating the blueprint of living in heart-centered gratitude while looking for light and good and God in every situation and circumstance. Thank you so much, Patricia, for sharing. Marcel, move back to possibility when despair results from reality. Powerful. Hanan, oh, she was incredibly honored to be in the room where someone was vulnerable enough to share not knowing what leadership looks like in light of recent events. Leading from the middle. Thank you. Terry will be sure to send that information out to you to ensure that you have it.
Someone asked a really important question in the chat. What if you don't know what's possible? And I thank the person for sending that message and asking that question, because it's a big one. And I think it's one that we all have tackled from time to time. That, you know, I can be just so used to what I'm used to, and I know what I know. And I think it was actually Laura who maybe started this conversation a lot earlier today of, you know, just learning that there's so much more outside of my own experience. And I think if I'm struggling to see what's possible for me, and just staying on track with our conversation today, Martin didn't know what was possible. He studied Gandhi. And that's one thing that amazing leaders do in times of uncertainty, is they look at history and they find other leaders who have dealt with situations like theirs. And they see what they learn what was possible for them. Because at that time, Martin only had that feeling of something's not right. This doesn't feel safe. This isn't how things should be. At the beginning of I'm at the mountaintop speech, the first minute is, you know, this isn't what the Constitution says on paper. There's an incongruence here. And when Martin was in that space of trying to figure out what was possible, he didn't rely on himself. He relied on history, and he relied on other amazing leaders. So if we may be in that space where we're trying to figure out what is possible for me based on my circumstances, based on my causes, based on what I care about, and based on what I feel, know that there is opportunity to still learn, and that there is some beautiful examples out there to teach. And I think being in this room is probably such an amazing step towards finding that. And over these next couple of weeks, I think we're going to go even deeper into that. What is possible? How do I figure that out? And then how do I start taking the steps towards making that not possible, but reality? So thank you for posing that question. I'm not going to share it because it was private, but thank you, because it was so important. And I think it was important for all of us to have that.
I would love to add to that, Matt. Powerful question. And I believe someone actually took the words right out of my mouth. I would say, when you don't know, you just dream. And Matt, you know, utilize Martin as an icon and a pillar to be able to bring forth that possibility. But I would even speak in my own space. I've never seen a lot of the things that I desire to do. I was told that I would never ever have the ability to even do some of the things that I'm doing. But nothing can come in the way of your dream. It's you allowing yourself the space to believe that there is more. And so I believe to actually tap into your belief. When you tap into your belief, you allow permission to dream, even in situations where you've never seen it. And that's the beauty of being the blueprint. I say this almost all the time when I'm speaking just about my life in general. I believe I am the paradigm. I am the blueprint, because a lot of the different things that I want to be able to do and carry out in this world, where I make happiness transferable, or where I create worlds where we can reimagine love and hope, I've never seen before. And I don't have a person to actually go to. And so I have to rely on creating a space to ask, allowing myself the ability to dream, and to be in partnership with people that would allow me to express myself. And from there, that's what served as my catalyst to push forward, knowing that it's a dream and it's something that I can reimagine, and it could be my extension of love left in the earth.
That's so good. This is why I love teams. So I have another question that came, and the question was, any suggestions on growing our belief? And I'll share a bit, and then if Shenequa or even Susan has anything to tap into, feel welcome to. So I know we didn't share much of our story starting off, and it's okay, we have a little time now. So I worked at NASA for over a decade, and it was halfway through my time there where I lost someone who was close to me, and then had some other very traumatic things happen in my life. And I went through 2 very deep depressions and almost took my life. And in that moment, what I craved the most was happiness. But what I realized is I couldn't just have it. And that's what a lot of us tend to do is, I know where I am, and I know the reality, I know the possibility, and I want to just jump over all the steps in the middle. And that's what we tend to try to do, is go from reality to results. But what I realized was I had to first heal myself. Then I could grow, and then I could create and have the life. So a lot of times when we get to this space of how do I grow my belief, first I need to know, what are my beliefs? I needed to start first by saying, why am I depressed and wanting to take my life? I can't just say I just don't want that now. I have to first understand it. And then I can make new decisions, and then I can grow through it. So as we're growing our beliefs, and as we want to, especially in this context, because everyone here, I know, because you're here, has something inside of you that calls you to be more, or that calls you to make more, or create more. I know that because you're on this call. If there has been any roadblock or obstacle, something that you feel like you keep hitting the wall, instead of bashing your head against the wall more, ask the question, is there a door maybe? At least that was the question I needed to ask myself, was maybe there are some other ways to go about this process I'm trying to figure out. Question, be curious. That is the main thing that all my clients I work with is stay in choice. Because when we feel like we've lost our ability to choose, when we feel like we're out of control, that's when we get stressed. That's when we're overwhelmed. That's when we're anxious. That's when, like Ethel said, we give up on hope. When we feel like we don't have a choice. So first start by understanding, then being curious. Because when you start learning and you have deeper understanding of yourself, then you can start making new decisions on who you want to be. So Shenequa or Susan, if you guys wanted to add anything to that.
Go ahead, Susan.
Sorry, I'm letting people in.
I know, this is multitasking like a champion.
Yes, thank you. Definitely want to extend gratitude to Susan for just being absolutely amazing.
Yes.
For you. No, Matt, you honed in on it, and I think it's a great point to actually prepare us and set us for our next conversation, where we talk about what does this look like practically, and how we can actually move the needle when it comes to transformation and change.
Yeah. And this is 40 days on purpose, because there's no way that we could go through all this that matters in an hour and a couple minutes. There's no way. So we said that it has to be more than just one conversation. And I think most of the people on this screen will agree that this was amazing. And I'm so thankful for all of you. And I'm so thankful for the different perspectives and for everyone who shared, whether in the chat or through their voice and in the breakout rooms and everything. You guys are amazing. So I look forward to seeing you all next week. I look forward to going even deeper. I look forward to learning more about Martin. and about how we can lead and be the change agents in our cities, our communities, and our world.
Awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. As Matthew stated, we are elated to have you here, and we're stoked for the next conversation because it starts with talk. It starts with being centered, and it starts with being present. And so thank you for being present today wholeheartedly. And so inhale all that goodness and let that take you throughout the week. Thank you. Can't wait to see you all soon.
See you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
You can unmute. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you so much for being here.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sharings.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Mhm.
See you again next week, we hope. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Oh, Miriam, someone's just asked to be admitted in. So I'll wait till Miriam. Miriam, we're so glad you're here, and we are just ending. So,
Sorry.
no, just to align yourself for the time, it started an hour and 20 minutes ago. So if you can join us next Saturday,
Sure.
we would love to have you then, okay?
Where are you calling in from, Miriam?
São Paulo, Brazil.
Oh, so amazing.
Yes.
So what time is it?
It's 2:20.
What in the
afternoon.
yeah?
Afternoon.
How was your day?
Okay, it's great. I'm not in São Paulo. I'm in a little town in the Mantiqueira Mountains. I'm up in the mountains and
Oh,
like 2 hours from São Paulo. But I always receive the mail from Charter of Compassion, and I just opened and
came.
gave a try. So,
How amazing. No, it's perfect. Thank you for coming. That's so good. So we'll be doing this, like Susan said, for the next 3 weeks too. So I hope you can come back next week. That would be amazing.
okay, this will be recorded. This was recorded. Can I have access for this first meeting?
Yes, we'll probably create a web page on the Charter for Compassion and then end up putting all 4 weeks in one place.
Perfect. Perfect.
Okay. Thank you for joining us, even though a little late. We love when people join us from around the world. Thank you.
Okay.
And Christopher, bye-bye. Christopher, you too joined just as we were winding down. So I just wanted to let you know that we started this an hour and 20 minutes ago. So next week, if you can just adjust your time so that you can join us and enjoy the whole hour and a half of wisdom from Shenequa and Matthew and the whole group.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much. This was incredible.
Yeah. Thank you all so
Christopher.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
I wanted to just chat with you, Susan, really quick, but there are people that are just 1 second.
No worries. We can figure that out. Okay. Now we're good.
I just put them in a waiting.
I have to do that. I have to do that to my students. I'm like, okay, bye. Y'all still want to be here? Click, 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 click out of here. Bye.
Yes,
What'd you think, Susan? What'd you think?
Oh, you guys are rock stars. Seriously. Like if I could have the fireworks and you're on the stage, big band, everyone's cheering, get their phone lights out.
It was so good. It was so good. I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah. You guys did an amazing job.
Thank you.
Awesome. It was good. It was good. I felt in the beginning, and you know, Susan, I can be honest and share this with you. I felt in the beginning that's why I was like, oh no, we need to inhale and release some stuff. Okay, because we need to open up. It just felt like there was a lot of fear. I felt fear, and I felt like a lot of pretension regarding what possibly could be said. But I was excited that we were able to align and come together and be centered. I thought it was amazing.
Yeah.
I did too.
I don't have anything else to say. It was great. I thought I messaged you about the breakout room, Susan.